Alrighty, guys, here we are with mistake number 5, which is too much restriction. I talk about this a little bit too. When we decide that we want to lose weight, one of our first instincts is to restrict our calorie intake, or kilojoules if you prefer to talk in kilojoules, and we restrict particular foods or whole food groups in some cases. And it's certainly really is quite a common feature in many of the programs that are out there, and you can sort of download diets and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of them are quite restrictive. So, well, you can't have any carbs, you don't eat bread, you don't eat this, you don't eat that, or you can only eat 1,200 calories each day. Um, and the trouble with restriction is that we feel like we're missing out. And because we've banned particular foods, it kind of makes us want to have them more. So if we're saying, oh, I'm not allowed to eat bread, every time you walk past a bakery, oh my God, I really want some bread. And it makes you crave it all the time. And I don't really think that's the greatest sort of place to put ourselves. It messes with our heads quite a lot. After a little while of this restriction, we'll give in to temptation. We'll go past the bakery one too many times and we'll go and get that bread. And not only did you break the bread rule, you broke the carb rule, and it's sort of either that or you've gone nuts and eaten 2,000 calories or something like that instead of your 1,200. And we start to feel guilty, which isn't ideal. We feel like we've stuffed the whole thing up, and we pretty much think, well, I've stuffed it up for today, I may as well just keep going. And we go on this bit of a binge, and we lose the plot pretty fast, and we can end up eating exactly how we were 3 weeks ago when we started. And we've had that big binge, so we may even end up gaining weight, which isn't what we're really after. We're sort of looking to make, again, sustainable changes. We want to make this something we can live with. Is it realistic to believe that you're not going to eat carbs for the rest of your life, or that you're not going to eat bread, or you're not going to eat that piece of cake, or that sort of thing? It's not realistic to that you're going to be able to stick to that long term. So um, it's just not the answer as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason why we can't practice moderation with all our foods rather than restricting them. So what I mean is that perhaps you can have a bit of cake, but it's more a sometimes food rather than I'll have cake every day for breakfast. It's really about changing your mindset around food, and it's really quite a challenge. So how do we avoid it? These are the basics. We can definitely chat about it in the group. Unless you have an allergy or an intolerance, don't ban any specific food or food group from your diets. There's just no need to ban it and give it the label of bad, so it's sort of evil, or you're being really naughty by having it, because it's not bad, it's just food. Here we go. Instead of labeling food good or bad, when it comes time to eat, just focus on what will really satisfy you at the time. And you might have a salad in the fridge, you might have a piece of chocolate cake, and you might have a casserole. There might be a whole bunch of different things. Instead of thinking, oh, what's the good choice, focus on how you feel and what you think would actually satisfy you. Because the trouble is, you might say, oh, I really want to eat the cake, but I shouldn't. I should eat the salad. That's the good thing to eat, and the cake is bad. You might eat the salad, and you might think, oh, I'm still hungry. That didn't satisfy me. I'll eat that apple over there. And you might end up eating 3 or 4 things, and then you may well, and I'm sure it's happened to you because it certainly happened to me, you might end up eating the cake as well. So not only have you had the cake, you've had 4 or 5 other things as well, where if you just ate the cake, you would have actually ended up with less calories. It's probably not as nutritiously sound, but it's give and take here. Listen to your hunger cues. This is actually quite a hard thing to get the hang of, and it's about eating when you feel hungry and stopping when you feel satisfied. And satisfied doesn't mean you're about to burst. Satisfied is sort of when you just feel satisfied. You don't feel like you're overfull, that you've overeaten. You just think, okay, I'm not hungry anymore, I feel good. and it can take a lot of practice to get used to this, but it's really something to start working on, and it can be really a long process. So it's not going to be something where you just magically flick a switch and you're listening to your hunger cues, because I mean, most of us have forgotten what it feels like to be hungry and what it even feels like to be satisfied. A really great book to read if you're interested is called If Not Dieting, Then What? It really is a bit of a game changer as far as I'm concerned about just about the way you think about food, and it will really make a difference, I think, in your relationship with food. And again, we'll talk about this a bit more in the group, but the nuts and bolts of it, they're the main things to focus on, I think. When it comes to restriction, it just really sets us up for negative feelings and guilt associated with eating, which isn't really what we're after. We're after something that we can live with in the long term. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute with mistake number 6.